What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Seahawks Now. Back again with some more updates. Unfortunately, the Seahawks, they did miss out on the Jaire Alexander sweepstakes. That news broke just a little bit ago this morning. We're talking about that. Plus, cornerbacks. The Seahawks have some good cornerbacks, but are they good enough to withstand the loss of not getting Jaire Alexander, right? Plus, the Seahawks well represented on the All-2000s team. We discussed that and what it means for this franchise. All right, let's get into things. But first, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel below. As always, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another breaking news upload. All right, let's begin. Jaire Alexander, we have been talking about him for about a week, ever since the Packers released him. They didn't want to pay him. The Seahawks could have decided to pay him, but unfortunately they did not. He is signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson might have spoken that deal into existence, writes Miles Simmons of Pro Football Talk for NBC. After Jackson told reporters he'd like the Ravens to add Jaire Alexander on Tuesday, Baltimore announced the club has signed the quarterback to a one-year deal on Wednesday. Interesting. Via Adam Schefter, Alexander is set to earn $4 million with another $2 million available on incentives. So my immediate reaction is, really? We couldn't have done that? I mean, understandably, Jaire Alexander is a really good player. $4 million for Jaire Alexander is not that much. And $2 million for Jaire Alexander in incentives, again, not that much. In the total, the contract might have reached $6 million, which I'm willing to pay that. For a guy like Jaire Alexander, yes, I'm willing to pay that. So thinking about it along those lenses, I actually think the Seahawks might have made a mistake. Now, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of this thing. Maybe the Seahawks reached out. Maybe the Seahawks offered him an identical contract. Of course, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it being reported, but you never know what could be happening behind the scenes. At the end of the day, this was a contract that I would have given him. I would have given him probably a little bit more. You know, if Jaire was looking for $5 million instead of $4 million, I would have paid him $5 million instead of $4 million. Like, it's ultimately, at the end of the day, this is the National Football League. $4 million for an all-pro level player is not that much. But at the same time, it's possible that we offered him the exact same contract and he just wanted to go to Baltimore more than he wanted to go to Seattle. That might be as simple as that. Again, I have no idea. I have no idea the behind the scenes. I have no idea the ins and outs of this contract. However, again, I would have paid him. I mean, you think about what he has been able to do over his time in the NFL. He's only 28 years old. He's already made 2 All-Pros, although I will say second team, so not first team All-Pro, but still really good. 2-time Pro Bowler. The only issue for him is health, right? The last 2 seasons, he's only played in 14 games. He played 7 games in 2023, and then he played 7 more games in 2024. But he just couldn't stay on the field, not healthy enough. And apparently the Packers just didn't want to pay him at all. They wanted to just put him as an all incentive-based contract. And I understand why a guy like Jaire Alexander, who gets hurt a lot, I understand why he would say, no, I don't want to have an incentive-based contract. I want to have a contract where, yeah, I can actually make my money. So, yeah, that makes sense to me. He's registered 70 passes defended with 12 interceptions since he entered the league in 2018. The Ravens were not really hurting at corner, but bringing in Jaire Alexander as an added depth piece could pay significant dividends given his experience and skill. It is worth noting that he was college teammates with who else but Lamar Jackson at Louisville, so that might have helped him to get that contract over there in Baltimore as well. Again, no idea what the background is. I would have paid him. I would have done it for the Seahawks, but they might not have even been in on him, and that's okay. Because the Seahawks already have good cornerbacks. Look, the Seahawks cornerbacks were just ranked as the top 5 duo in the NFL. Do I agree with this? I'm not sure. I want to look into this. But according to Seattle Seahawks on SI, Randy Gurzy writes, the Seattle Seahawks cornerback duo was cracked the top 5 in the NFL. They might not be the Legion of Boom, but they do have a talented secondary. Here's what they write. They write, Reek Woolen and Devon Witherspoon give the Seahawks 2 talented defenders. Witherspoon may have struggled in coverage a little bit, but he had excellent run support from the slot. When he was I would say a lethal playmaker. I think you could put that on there. Reek Woolen, a little bit inconsistent, but I do think that Reek Woolen is a good player. You know, when he's healthy, when he's playing well, when he's not getting in trouble from the coaching staff, Yeah, he's a good player. I think he is. So according to Bleacher Report's Mo Moton, they are one of the top 5 cornerbacks in cornerback duos in the league. Again, I'm not necessarily sure if I agree with this. To be completely frank, I do think that they are talented. I'm not sure about all the other cornerback duos in the league, but I'm glad that people do think so. I'm glad that people think that they are going to be able to do this. I mean, a quote writes Mo Morton, under McDonald, Witherspoon saw an uptick in snaps out of the slot compared to his rookie year in Carroll's system. As a result, he had more responsibilities in run defense, and he made his presence felt in that role, logging 98 tackles, 6 for a loss. Yeah, so Devon Witherspoon last year, he was great defending the run. Against the pass, I don't think that this is a top 5 duo, but against the run, they might be the best in the league. They're very aggressive. I appreciate what they've been able to accomplish here. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to see them get some recognition. I still would have loved to see Jair Alexander here again, but it's good to know that I do think that they are talented. I would say definitely top 10 pretty clearly, and the fact that people are starting to say top 5, that's great. That's great to hear. All right, let's get into my favorite topic today. The all-quarter century team has been released by the NFL, or rather by ESPN. The Seahawks were pretty well represented. So we had 5 people on the all-quarter century team. The way this works is they built a full 53-man roster, and they included a practice squad, which we also had a 6th member of. And they are basically going position by position, the best players from 2000 until 2025. Here is what they had for Seattle, which I think is interesting. For Seattle, not cracking the quarterback position, obviously, and that's understandable, right? Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, obviously they're all better than Russell Wilson. The practice squad was Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. I understand that, not mad at all. Running backs, I do think that they could have had a room for a Seahawk. They ended up going with Priest Holmes, Christian McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry with LaDainian Tomlinson on their practice squad. Honestly, I do think that Marshawn Lynch could have been on this list. I think that at his peak, he was just as good as any of these guys, especially Christian McCaffrey, who just never could stay healthy. Although I do think the bigger snub was Adrian Peterson, who is obviously not a Seahawk, but you could say Marshawn Lynch, maybe not a massive snub, but I think he has an argument for sure. Then we got fullbacks, Kyle Juszczyk, again, no Seahawk here. Wide receivers, they go with Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, Terrell Owens, Marvin Harrison, and Justin Jefferson, so no Seahawk represented there either. Again, I'm okay with it. Our best Seahawk probably would have been DK Metcalf, honestly, or maybe you go with Doug Baldwin. Neither of them are on those level. Practice squad ends up Antonio Brown, Andre Johnson. Tight ends, they go with Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, and Antonio Gates on the practice squad. Again, maybe you could try to argue for Jimmy Graham just on the longevity argument, but I get why he's not there. But here's where we get to our first Seahawk is on the offensive line. So left tackles, they go with Joe Thomas and Trent Williams. Walter Jones in the practice squad. Honestly, this is really tough for Walter Jones because Walter Jones is a truly elite player. He's a NFL Hall of Fame caliber player. However, so is Joe Thomas and so is Trent Williams. And I think, honestly, the recency bias for Trent Williams and Joe Thomas is the only reason why they get there and Walter Jones ends up on the practice squad. But I'm still happy to see the Seahawks get represented. And then we get to the left guards. They go with Alan Faneka and our next Seahawk, Steve Hutchinson, who actually makes the roster at left guard. He only played for 5 years with the Seahawks. Then he played 6 with the Minnesota Vikings and 1 with the Tennessee Titans. He made 169 starts and was a 7-time All-Pro player. Helped the Seahawks out in Super Bowl 45 when he was their starting left guard and made a massive impact. Obviously, Walter Jones was also on that team. So again, shout out to Walter Jones, but I'm glad to see Steve Hutchinson get his love. The center was Jason Kelce. Again, they didn't pick a backup center. Maybe there's a possibility Max Unger could have been that guy, but they didn't go with him. Right guards, the Seahawks did not make the cut on the rest of the rest of the offensive line. They did not get an edge rusher either. They go with Myles Garrett, DeMarcus Ware, Jared Allen, and Julius Peppers. TJ Watt on the practice squad there. Defensive tackles, again, no Michael Bennett on here. They go with Aaron Donald, Calais Campbell, Chris Jones, and Cam Hayward on the practice squad. J.J. Watt also makes the cut as a versatile lineman. Linebackers, though, the Seahawks are back on the board with Bobby Wagner, who is alongside Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, Levante David, and Luke Kuechly. Glad to see Bobby Wagner gets this love. Probably the most slam dunk obvious choice on here. This guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Still in the league, by the way, but he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. He's got 7 first-team All-Pro selections, 11-time total All-Pro selections, 35 sacks in his career. He was a Super Bowl champion, member of the Legion of Boom, led the NFL in tackles 3 times. Just a fantastic player, and I'm glad to see he gets the love because he deserves it. The Seahawks, again, are on the board at the cornerback position. Joining Richard Sherman is Patrick Peterson, Rondé Barber, Champ Bailey, and Darrell Revis, along with Jalen Ramsey on the practice squad. Glad to see, again, Richard Sherman. He deserves this. He played for 7 years with the Seahawks, 3 with the 49ers, 1 with Tampa Bay, won the Super Bowl with Seattle, 5-time All-Pro, 5 forced fumbles, 37 interceptions. He was a member of the Legion of Boom. If not for him, the Seahawks probably don't win the Super Bowl because they might have lost to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game back in 2014. Massive, massive playmaker. He just did it all. Really glad to see Richard Sherman get his love. And then again, another Legion of Boom member, the safety. It's not Cam Chancellor. It's Earl Thomas III, joining Brian Dawkins, Troy Polamalu, and Ed Reed in the safety core. Charles Woodson is on the practice squad there. But Earl Thomas, again, 9 years in Seattle, and then 1 year in Baltimore. His resume includes 30 interceptions, 12 forced fumbles, 5-time All-Pro selections. He shut down the deep part of the field for the Seahawks, Pro Bowler in 5 straight seasons. He was the Seahawks' top defender against both short passes and deep passes in 2013. Member of the Legion of Boom, won the Super Bowl in Seattle. Just a fantastic player before all the off-the-field issues got to him. But again, I'm really happy to see Earl Thomas get his love here. And then you go to the special teams, and the Seahawks are represented on special teams, not at kicker with Justin Tucker, although I do think Sebastian Janikowski has a possibility here to be a practice squad. They only picked 1 kicker, though. Punter, they go with Shane Leckler of the Texans. Again, Michael Dixon, is he better than Shane Leckler? Maybe he is. I don't know. Michael Dixon leads the NFL in yards per punt, but he doesn't make the cut here. But the Seahawks did get in for a return specialist. Again, this one feels kind of cheap. He only played half a season in Seattle, but Devin Hester does make the cut as a return specialist, and he is technically a Seahawk. He is remembered for scoring the opening goal in the opening kickoff, in a Super Bowl back with the Chicago Bears. With the Atlanta Falcons. In 2015, he scored the opening kickoff return with the Falcons. The Falcons, of course, lost that game 20-3. That was the 20-3 game. But Devin Hester, best as a punt returner. He had 14 return touchdowns off of punts. That's just insane. First return specialist to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. And he did go in as a Bear, not as a Seahawk, obviously. But still, he did play for the Seahawks, and it's worth mentioning. And on the coaching staff, they ended up with going with Bill Belichick as the head coach. Of course, that makes sense. Pete Carroll, was a great head coach, and I would have loved to see him make the cut here. But Bill Belichick, you have to go with Bill Belichick. I think 7 rings, it's unbeatable. 6 rings, it's just unbeatable. You can't deny Bill Belichick that spot. As much as I love Pete Carroll, I'm not mad. If they had picked a runner-up head coach, probably would have gone with Andy Reid, and then probably Pete Carroll could have been that number 3 guy. But unfortunately for Pete Carroll, not good enough to make the cut here. With that all being said, I want to wrap things up for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Like, subscribe, as always. Comment down below. Who do you think was the biggest snub off that list for the Seahawks? Was it Cam Chancellor? Was it Marshawn Lynch? Or was it somebody else? Let me know down below in the comments. And as always, until next time, go Seahawks.